The word of the Lord came expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Kabar. And the hand of the Lord was there upon him. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, and a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of hashmal, out of the midst of the fire. Welcome back. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Today we got the book of Ezekiel, traditionally attributed to the prophet Ezekiel, which contains his prophecies and visions during the Babylonian exile. 597 BCE, King Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem and King Jehoiakim surrendered. After the surrender, King Jehoiakim, his court, his military leaders, and many skilled workers were then gathered up and taken to Babylon. This is recorded in 2 Kings 24. Now, the book of Ezekiel stands out for its elaborate visions. There's a lot of symbology within this text and a lot of details on future restoration, making it a unique and profound part of the biblical canon. I am super excited for this one. Let's get into it. Now, from the intro, you've already heard I read Ezekiel 1, verse 4, and it says that I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself. And a brightness was about it, out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. And right here, as the color of amber. In Hebrew, that is a word called hashmel. It's ket, sheen, mem, lamed, but it starts with a ket, which gives it a kind of sound. Now this is where it gets very interesting. Let's talk about the hashmalim. They are angelic entities in Judaism. Down here it says the Septuagint translates hashmal, which means amber in English. It later became the modern Hebrew word that translates to the English word electricity. And also over here, it talks about the hashmalim being the fourth rank in the Jewish angelic hierarchy. Continuing with verse 5, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of four living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. And every one had four faces, and every one had four wings. This is describing the cherubim, which is another angelic being. And their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot. And they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. And they had the hands of a man under their wings on their four sides, and they four had their faces and their wings. Their wings were joined one to another, and they turned not when they went. They went every one straight forward. As for the likeness of their faces, they four had the face of a man, the face of a lion on the right side, and they four had the face of an ox on the left, and they four had the face of an eagle. Cherubim were known widely throughout the ancient Near Middle East. You would see them everywhere, from gates to walled cities to actual thrones and chariots of kings. In the Abrahamic religions, cherubim are angelic beings that attend directly to God. As in the book of Genesis, after Adam and Eve are cast out of the garden, God places cherubim there to protect the tree of life. They were kind of like guardians of God's throne. That's why you would see them at the gates and on thrones, because they symbolize divine protection and authority. He says on the right they had the face of a man and a lion, and on the left they had the face of an ox and an eagle. And as for the faces, in my opinion, I believe that the faces symbolize the cardinal points of the zodiac. You are talking Heaven is God's throne and the earth his footstool. I've shown this before. This is rabbinic commentary of Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 14. It says, "You are a cherub, a great covering cherub. You were on the mountain of God, and you walked among the stones of fire." In the commentary here, it says a cherub, a bird of great measure, i.e., the huge bird that covers a large area with his wings. So the kings would almost represent dominion over a large area, i.e., you rule over a large dominion right here, if you can see that. Even shows you it was like the color of the chashmal. It's an angel bearing that name. This is an Egyptian-style throne, and I want you to kind of keep this in mind, because Ezekiel says he saw a vision. The heavens opened up, and he saw the throne of God. Except where the legs are, these beings were actual living creatures. And I'm hoping that'll make a little bit more sense when we get to the wheel, because Ezekiel describes this not only as God's throne, but also his chariot, and it was powered by these beings. I hope you're still with me at this point. I wanted to go through the imagery and the iconography. The prophet Ezekiel wants to convey to the children of Israel that God is all-powerful. He's still in control of everything that happens on earth. They're captives in Babylon now. He's telling them, hey, we are being judged for our sins. We stay loyal to God and his commandments. We will be restored. Israel will be restored. Let's continue with verse 15. I'm not going to read the whole thing and go through, verse by verse. I'm just going to point out some things. So he says, "Now I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with his 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of beryl. They 4 had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel." And you'll see here where he talks about beryl and crystal and sapphire. These are the precious stones that are associated with the throne of God. They also represented the tribes of Israel. They were on the plates of the priests when they went into the Ark of the Covenant. So there's a lot of reoccurring themes here with these stones. And it says, when they went upon their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went. So this thing doesn't act like a physical chariot as far as how it moves. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. So they were all together. He's trying to describe how this thing moved. He's saying that the wheels and the creatures acted as one. If the wheels were lifted up, the creatures were lifted up. And just a weird way of trying to explain how this thing actually moved. So first Ezekiel sees the vision of God's throne and chariot. Then he's given a scroll to eat, representing his prophetic mission. He's then taken to Jerusalem in a vision and sees the temple filled with idolatry. God's glory leaves the temple, indicating its coming destruction. Then we have the vision of the valley of dry bones. Ezekiel prophesies, and the bones come to life, symbolizing the future resurrection and restoration of Israel from exile. The final vision describes a new temple in great detail, symbolizing the restoration of proper worship and God's renewed presence among his people. Overall, the prophet Ezekiel and his visions conveyed themes of divine punishment for Israel's sins, also the hope of future restoration under God's covenant. That concludes my episode on Ezekiel's vision. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you would, like it, and please subscribe for more content. This is So Ancient. Thank you for your time.